There's a truth many people don't want to face. The average American household now owns over 300,000 items, from forgotten shoes in the closet to dozens of unused charging cables and to hundreds of mementos buried in plastic bins in the basement. But here's the paradox. The more we have, the less in control we feel. And once you're past 60, that feeling becomes even more real. A space that once felt restful now feels like a maze. A home once filled with memories is now filled with things to deal with later. And then a bigger question begins to surface. Do I still have the strength and the clarity to live alone and take care of myself? In this video, you'll follow the story of Catherine Hodge, 68 years old, a woman living independently in Ohio who refuses to become a burden to anyone. Catherine discovered 7 simple but powerful habits that helped her keep her home clutter-free, and more importantly, helped her stay in charge of her life. If you're someone who also longs for lasting independence, if you want to live simply but not give up on yourself, then this might be the place to start. Watch to the end of the video to uncover the 7 habits Catherine now lives by, and who knows, you might just see a part of yourself in her journey. And if you value reflections like this, don't forget to subscribe so that Senior Eyes can keep walking beside you on this path. Habit 1. The purpose shelf. Every space needs an identity. Catherine didn't start her journey by cleaning the whole house. She started with a shelf. Not because it was the messiest, but because it was the first space where she lost her sense of control. It was the small shelf by the entryway, originally just a spot for her keys and mail. But over the years, it had quietly become a dumping ground. Unopened bills, phone numbers on scraps of paper, old reading glasses, even a random screw she had no memory of. And then one morning, as Catherine was rushing out, she tripped on a cloth bag left under that shelf. She wasn't hurt, but that stumble left her with a question that echoed all day. If I live alone and can't even manage this shelf, who will take care of the whole house when I can't? That question became the turning point. The next day, she pulled out a piece of paper and wrote in big letters, "Every space needs a purpose." She taped it right on the wall, facing the messy shelf. Instead of trying to clean everything at once, Catherine began by renaming each surface in her home. The shelf by the door became the in and out station, only for keys, fresh mail, and clean masks. The left side of the kitchen counter, morning tea zone. The shelf by the window, memory corner, with her daughter's photo and a small vase. When I gave each space a name, she shared, it felt like I was managing a team, and every little corner had its job. The magic wasn't in how clean the shelf became. It was in how much mental energy she got back. She no longer wasted time looking for her glasses. She no longer sighed at a cluttered surface. And most importantly, I felt like I had my home back without having to fight for it. Catherine didn't use a single app. She didn't hire anyone. She simply defined the purpose of each space, and in doing so, she lowered her stress, saved energy, and protected her independence. Have you ever looked around your home and realized some spaces no longer serve any purpose? Maybe that's the exact place you need to rename first. If you're living on your own or want to stay in control, start with just one shelf, one table corner, one chair, and ask yourself, what role does this space play in my life today? If you had to name one corner of your home right now, which one would it be? Share it in the comments. I'd truly love to see where everyone begins. Habit 2. One in, one out, maintaining balance, one item at a time. As Catherine began to regain control over the small corners of her home, she realized something even bigger. Spaces never stay still. If she didn't make intentional choices, they would quietly fill up again. One day at the grocery store, Catherine bought a new sweater. Soft, lightweight, cream-colored. She loved it the moment she tried it on. But when she brought it home and opened her closet, she froze. Her winter wardrobe was already full. The new sweater was beautiful, but there was no room. Everything inside had some reason to stay. The still warm jacket, the cardigan her daughter had gifted her, the light coat she wore every fall. But then, Catherine asked herself, if I keep adding without letting go, am I living in a closet or living in a home? Right then, she made a decision she would later call her first exchange. The new sweater went in. One old sweater came out, folded carefully and placed into the donation bag for her local church. Since that day, she's followed a simple rule. One in, one out. No elaborate systems, just one principle to keep things in balance. Whenever something new enters the house, a bowl, a book, a scarf, she gently asks, what will leave to make space for this? Catherine doesn't see this as strict discipline. She sees it as a gentle reminder. I'm still in charge of my life, one item at a time. This habit didn't just keep her home tidy, it brought peace to her mind. She no longer held on to things just in case. She no longer shopped out of boredom or habit. When I knew I had to let go of one thing to bring another in, I started thinking twice before bringing anything home. And then something deeper began to change. Catherine started to feel enough. Not because she owned less, but because everything she kept had a reason to stay. No more items sitting around just because they once mattered. Every item now served her current life. Are you living among things that once had meaning, but now only take up space? If the answer is yes, maybe it's time to try the one in, one out rule. And if you're still reading this far, type, I'm ready to start simple. Just so I know you're walking this journey alongside us. Habit 3. Repair or pass. Don't let anything wait in a corner forever. There's a wall clock in Catherine's kitchen. It stopped working nearly 2 years ago. Every time she looked up, the minute hand was stuck at 11:03. And every time she sighed and told herself, I'll fix it when I have time. Have you ever had something like that? A chair that needs a screw tightened, a shirt waiting for a button, a lamp that just needs a new bulb. They're small, they don't take up much space, but they quietly drain your energy. Every time you walk past, you're reminded that's still not done. And slowly, they pile up into a sense of stagnation. Catherine called these things her someday pile. One day, she opened her storage cabinet and found a large bag of fix-it-later items, things she had tucked away 4 seasons ago. Right then, she made a decision. Repair it, gift it, or let it go. She sorted every item into 3 clear groups. Fixable right away, placed on the kitchen table to handle that week. Still good, but not needed. Into the donation basket. No longer useful. Thanked, then thrown away. Not every item stayed, but every item was decided on. She called that day her clearing the delay day. And the result surprised her. When I let go of broken things, I never fixed. I also let go of the feeling that I was always behind. Since then, she's kept one simple principle. No item is allowed to sit unresolved for more than 1 week. If it can be fixed, fix it. If it's still good, give it. If it's no longer used, release it. And from that, a new habit was born. On the first Saturday of each month, Catherine hosts a small event in her neighborhood called Fix and Share. Neighbors bring broken items. They sip tea, sew buttons, glue wobbly chair legs, polish old brass. The atmosphere is warm. No one feels superior. No one is just helping out. They're simply people reclaiming their independence, one small action at a time. We're not just fixing things, Catherine smiles. We're repairing that part of us that still believes we're capable of so much. Is there something in your home that's been silently waiting for you to deal with it? If you opened one drawer today, would something inside make you hesitate? If yes, leave a comment. I'll choose one thing to resolve today. You don't have to clean the whole house. Just begin with one item quietly waiting for your decision. Habit 4. Pause drawer. A space to pause for conscious decisions. Not every decision needs to be made immediately, but no decision should be abandoned for years either. Catherine understood this deeply, especially when she began dealing with objects tied to emotions. Her late sister's scarf, a birthday card with her elderly mother's handwriting, a small gift from an old friend she hadn't heard from in years. No one ever taught her how to decide between preserving a memory or preserving her living space. Instead of forcing herself to choose on the spot, Catherine created a special place, a pause drawer. It was a small drawer in her bedroom. Not cluttered, not a dumping ground. Just a space for items she wasn't ready to decide on today, but didn't want to ignore forever either. Whenever she felt unsure whether to keep or let go of something, she'd place it inside and whisper, "We'll revisit this later." She set a monthly reminder to open the drawer, look at each item, and ask herself, "Do I still need this in my life today? Or am I just holding on because I'm not ready?" The pause drawer helped her separate action from emotion, giving time for clarity. It didn't force her to throw away memories. It allowed her to choose which memories were truly meant to live on with her. An item that still tugged at her heart, she kept it. One that had quietly faded from her mind, she let it go. I learned to let go with gratitude, not guilt. I didn't need to prove I was strong. I just needed to be sure I was still the one making the choices. Catherine's home no longer ran on emotional impulse. It reflected the clarity, intention, and dignity of a woman who knew that keeping everything didn't make life fuller. I want you to imagine this. If you created a pause drawer for yourself today, what's the first item you'd put in it? Share with me in the comments. You can simply write, "I know what I'd place in there." You don't need to explain if you're not ready. Just knowing you've taken a conscious step, that itself is a big success. Habit 5. Farewell walk. Staying in control through a gentle, nightly ritual. Catherine had a nightly habit that surprised many of her neighbors when they found out. She didn't write it down, didn't set an alarm, and didn't treat it like a chore. She simply took a walk around her house before going to bed. They jokingly called it the Independent Grandma Patrol, but to Catherine, it was her quiet way of staying in charge. It started after a night she forgot to turn off the stove. Nothing serious happened, but that brief panic made her ask, "If I live alone, who will be the last one to check everything each night?" The answer was, me, and I need to be ready. So every evening, around 9:15 p.m., Catherine walked through each room, checked the gas, unplugged the kettle, locked the windows, folded the blanket on the sofa, turned off hallway lights, sorted new mail into a tray. It all took about 10 minutes, not to clean, but to affirm that her home was still being run by her. When I walked through the house, I'm not just checking things, she shared. I'm checking in with myself, seeing that I've wrapped up the day, seeing that I'm still taking care of myself in all the little ways. This habit helped her sleep better, carrying no worries into her dreams. And in the morning, she'd wake up to a home that wasn't messy or chaotic, just peaceful, waiting for her. Someone once asked, "Catherine, do you do that just to avoid having to clean up?" She smiled gently and replied, "No, I do it so no one else has to clean up after me." This simple 10-minute habit allowed her to keep her independence every single day without having to prove anything to anyone. Do you have a small nightly ritual that helps you feel more at peace? Maybe it's checking the lock, turning off the lights, or simply tidying up the table. Try sharing in the comments. I have a little habit of my own. Because when you write it down, you're affirming to yourself that you're still in charge of your space, and that deserves to be acknowledged. Habit 6. 3 generations plus legacy. Preserve the meaning, not the burden. 1. Spring morning, Catherine decided to open her mother's old wooden chest, a keepsake she had held onto for nearly 20 years. Inside were all sorts of mementos, postcards from relatives who had passed, scribbled notes from family dinners, and even a ribbon from her mother's wedding dress. She looked at each item, each handwriting, and then a quiet realization struck her heart. I remember all of this, but if I'm gone one day, will anyone understand why it mattered? That's when Catherine began applying the 3-generation rule, a simple yet powerful way to make decisions about memory-filled objects. She asked herself, if 3 generations down, my grandchild, my great-grandchild, picked up this item, would they understand why I kept it? If the answer was yes, she kept it. But if not, she said thank you and let it go. I don't keep the object, she said. I keep the meaning. From that day forward, Catherine began attaching small notes to the items she chose to keep. A family photo, labeled with names, date, and event. A wool scarf with a tag. My daughter knitted this for me when I was sick, 1998. An old perfume bottle with a slip of paper. The scent my father wore his entire life. In this way, she didn't just preserve belongings, she preserved stories, emotions, and reasons for their presence. And when Catherine started sharing these with her family, something remarkable happened. They didn't feel like they were inheriting a pile of stuff. They felt like they were receiving pieces of memory, pieces of her, kept in just the right way. I'm not leaving behind a burden, she said. I'm leaving behind a story, so they know where they came from. Not everyone is ready to sort through their material legacy while still alive, but Catherine believed choosing early is an act of respect for oneself and for the ones we love. Have you ever come across an object and thought, no one understands why I've kept this, but I do? If so, you're not alone. Share one such item in the comments, or simply share the story behind it. Because sometimes, others don't need the object. They just need to hear the story to understand you better. Habit 7. Legacy lunch. Share while you can still see the joy. Each spring, when sunlight begins to spill through the window and the cherry blossoms in the backyard start to bloom, Catherine hosts a special meal her family lovingly calls the legacy lunch. No fancy clothes required. She doesn't use the antique china. The menu is simple: roast chicken, steamed vegetables, and an apple pie baked by her granddaughter. But to Catherine, it's the most important meal of the year. I don't want a day to come when they all have to sit down, open box after box, searching through drawers and guessing what mattered to me. I want them to know, while I can still tell them. She started this tradition after helping her mother declutter in her final years. Her mother had saved many things, but no one knew why. They were afraid to toss them, afraid to keep them, afraid of getting it wrong. And that uncertainty made saying goodbye even harder. Catherine didn't want that to happen again. So every year, during the legacy lunch, she selects a few meaningful items, tells the story behind each one, and passes them on. In the middle of laughter, eye contact, and heartfelt thanks. I've seen my grandson's eyes light up as he held the wooden chessboard I used to teach him the game with that summer. I've heard my daughter laugh when I handed her the old recipe card, still dusted with flour, we used every Sunday morning. And I've held my granddaughter's hand as she hugged a tiny glass vase, saying, "This is the vase that always had flowers in your room, Grandma." Catherine calls these moments of sharing while you can still witness the appreciation, not to make a big deal, but to turn memory into connection, to turn objects into chapters of life retold with love, not regret. I'm not leaving a legacy because I'm going away. I'm sharing because I'm still here. And the most beautiful part? She felt lighter after every one. What remained in her home was no longer something to deal with, but something that had already been chosen. And the people she loved, they now understood exactly why it was worth keeping. What about you? If you could choose one item to pass on to a loved one right now, what would it be and why? Share that story in the comments below. Because you never know, you might just inspire someone who's ready to begin their own journey too. At a certain age, we no longer want to control everything. We simply want to take ownership of what truly matters. Being independent after 60 doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means knowing clearly what we choose to keep and what we're ready to let go. For Catherine, every small action, how she organizes, how she decides, what she shares, is her way of preserving freedom within her own home. Not to be perfect, but to feel lighter, to stay proactive, and to never live passively in her own life. You might be in a season where things feel piled up, the stuff, the emotions, the unfinished business, but you don't have to do it all in one day. No one needs to complete the entire journey. You just need to begin with one small step. One simple decision today can become the foundation for long-lasting peace. If you're still watching at this point, thank you. That says a lot. That you genuinely want to live with more clarity, that you want your living space to reflect who you truly are, and that you want the next years to unfold in a way you choose. Share one thing you want to change or something you've already started doing to live more lightly and independently. Your story might reach someone who needs just a bit of inspiration. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Senior Rise for more journeys into simple yet deeply meaningful living after 60. Because in the life ahead, we don't need many things, just the things that truly belong to us.